Assalamu alaikum, Sister Shabana.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you doing?
Good, Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm alright.
I'm going to get straight into it. This is about you. This is about chatting about your journey with the science of the nafs. And I really just want to hear what the experience has been like for you. Like before you started the training, what was happening, what was going on for you, and what led you to look for this training, sister?
Okay, so Alhamdulillah, I still say Alhamdulillah. It was not the best of my times, but it's still the best of journeys that I've had. What actually happened before I started the Nafs transformation journey? Um, to be honest, everything, if I even was to put a visual image of it, everything in my life was falling apart. It's like I was flowing and every block in my life was falling down. In terms of my health, I myself was a total mess. In terms of my marriage was falling apart. In fact, by then my husband and I were in the middle of a separation, and we had even split assets. Um, the house that we were living in, what I had known as home, was actually on sale at that time. In terms of my work was also not at all going well. After so many years of being, in fact, developing my own legal practice, I was watching it also collapse because my staff and everyone was now, I would say, it seemed like they were being hostile, but I came to discover on my own that I was the one creating the issue because my clients were unhappy, my staff were unhappy, and everyone was ready to leave me. And I truly felt like a complete failure at that time in my life.
Subhanallah. So that was right before you joined the training. And then, but Alhamdulillah, you then found the training.
Yeah, it was the lowest point, I would say, in my life because for me, um, I felt like everything was going wrong and everything was falling apart. And truly, I felt like I was to blame for it because, on one hand, I wasn't able to salvage my marriage, and I was trying so hard to work in on my business because that was the only thing I could try and hold on to. And in the end, I was spending so much time working that I was neglecting my son. So I felt like even in terms of being a parent, as a mother, I was a failure. Um, and my work, as much as I was trying to put in, I didn't have. I was totally burnt out in terms of even that aspect. I wanted to deliver, I couldn't deliver. Everything was so overwhelming for me. And the worst part is my body was also giving up on me to the extent that I was even scared of eating food because the minute I ate food, my body would be in a total reaction. I would have infections after infections, and every time I would end up in the hospital. I would be on drips continuously, and it was literally the
Subhanallah.
worst point of my life.
Wow, so subhanallah. So, and how did that, where you were then, as you explained now, really impacted you in so many ways. Your work, your staff, your marriage, just you as a person in general. And so, what was the feeling like for you most days before your journey?
Before my journey, I was always feeling sad. I was feeling hopeless. I was feeling like a complete failure. Uh, Truly, everything around me looked like a gloomy situation. There was no joy in my life at that time.
What made you, when you joined the program, of course, you were looking for a solution, right? But when you think about where you were, did you have any doubts about doing this program?
So interestingly, that became one of my lowest pain point also at that time when I opted to join the course. What happened is I had started having hope that maybe there was an opportunity, maybe I could get better. But why I call it still my lowest point, because at that time I was making dua, and I had learned from by then Sheikh Muhammad Al Sharif Rahimullah that
Rahimahullah.
I had so much yaqeen in dua, and I had watched my duas being answered in terms of what was not, I would say, contextually really what I wanted, but I think it was just Allah proving to me that He was there, because before actually coming to when I joined, I actually had attended one of his courses. It was Visionaire 2030. And in that, basically, he was making us vision 10 years ahead. And
Yeah.
I did that, and it was really amazing. It wasn't real. It didn't sound real, but still, the exercise was so soothing that it put me on like a high. I
Yeah.
would call it a temporary high. And I remember
Yes.
when I did that, one of the duas that I had made was that I be on top of a mountain, because he told us, you make the dua something impossible you think that might
Okay.
not happen, and considering my health and everything, I thought that's obviously not practical or possible, but I still made the dua. And a few days later, what actually did happen is my brother told me, let's go to South Africa. And we went to South Africa. And
Alhamdulillah.
in the next few days, we actually went on in a Table Mountain. And while I was there, I was like, oh my, this is real. It's happened. The dua has happened. So
Yes, the impossible dua. The
yeah,
impossible dua has happened.
yeah, so I at that time I had so much yaqeen that Allah can answer dua, and and in the same trip, what other thing happened is when now we were supposed to travel back. Uh, Actually, we had to do obviously COVID test because that was 2021, and at that time there was Omicron which had hit South Africa, and. I remember my brother and his whole family, the whole group we went with, everyone had COVID. And the only people who didn't have it was me and my son. And again,
Subhanallah.
it reminded me of a dua I had made of protection. And while I was at the mosque, the imam, had made a dua that Ya Allah protect us and the ummah from COVID. And I remember as I was leaving the mosque that day, I was again on a high because at that time I believed in dua. And the administrator of the mosque, when I met her, she was like, why so happy? We are in a gloom right now, why are you all happy? And I told her, we've just made dua and duas are answered, so we are protected. And as I was traveling back on that trip, I realized, oh my Allah, you granted me two duas in one go. uh,
Oh,
Truly there must be something that I'm truly near to you somehow. And that
Alhamdulillah.
trip was a game changer for me, because when I came back, I started now really focusing on how to improve myself. And I did a number of the challenges by then Discovery U
Yes.
was offering.
Yes.
And now the last challenge that they were actually offering at that time in July was the Rising Tide challenge, which Sheikh Mohammed Al Sharif was his last challenge. And unfortunately, he passed away just
Yes.
before we could do the challenge. And I remember I I cried that he passed away. I was so remorseful. And he was planning to do those sessions with, I think it was that team for Tony Robbins and all. So even they were offering a master class. So I immediately joined it. I thought there must be something he wanted to teach us in it that I'll
Yes.
find it there. So when I attended that master class, I felt so hollow. Uh, there was no mention of Allah in it, and truly I missed the mention of Allah in the whole thing. And I remember at that time I prayed to Allah, Ya Allah, I need to build my boat. How will I build my boat? Because he used to tell us, if your dua is not being answered, that means you need to build a boat. So I said,
Yes.
Ya Allah, I want to build my boat. I want you to answer my dua and solve all my problems. And that's actually when I was so depressed that I didn't know now from here who will take me forward. And that's when I got the master class for Ustad Abdul Shahid. And I actually enrolled for the master class. I immediately
Yes.
registered, and uh, it was mind blowing. I was so mesmerized with it, and then he offered in the master class that in honor of Sheikh Mohammed Sharif Rahimullah, that he was giving a 1 month bonus to access the Nafs
Yes.
transformation.
Yes.
And that's how I started. And by the time that August it was ending, and now it was time, like okay, I had to make a decision to sign up. I knew, I had the yakin that this is where Allah wanted me to go. So that's actually how I started my journey with Nafs transformation.
Subhanallah. What a journey. What a journey. But of course, that's where it started, and you're still on the journey, right? You're still
Alhamdulillah.
going, and you're still going. Alhamdulillah.
Mm.
And so when you spoke about highs, right? There were two times now when you told me that you felt that high. So when it comes to the journey itself, we often speak about that breakthrough moment, right? That moment where the penny just drops and you realize, gosh, subhanallah, this is a breakthrough. What was your first breakthrough after going through the Nafs journey?
My first breakthrough, to be honest, was my ability to start eating food properly, because what truly had happened, by the time I was joining Nerves Transformation, I was afraid of food, because the minute I ate food, I would have such massive reactions to it that I would be in the hospital because of infections. So I remember at that time, because I had finished by the time it was September, I had finished the mind map, the first module, and I was actually on the second module, and and I actually now needed vitamins at that time, because I was obviously low on energy. I wasn't eating properly in any way, so I went to the hospital, and I told the doctor, you need to prescribe me vitamins. And she was like, we have to test you because you might end up overdosing on vitamins. So she asked me to explain what was going on with me. So I gave her my whole history of I had gone through so many tests, but I had no diagnosis. And I told her, look, I don't want to go through more tests. It's too much of a trauma for me, because being put on machines, being put on nerve induction, all those different things. I said, I don't want to do all that. So she asked me something like, so for how long will you not eat? So I was like
Wow.
jolted, and I remembered something in, I think it was a master class, where Abdul Shahid was talking of an analogy of you need to chew the food to taste it, and then he gave the analogies you can spit it out. So
Yes.
actually, when the doctor was talking to me, it hit me that I was scared of the food. I was avoiding the food, and it's like now I was
Wow.
running away from the food itself. And at that time, she asked me categorically, "Can we do the tests?" Trust me, I won't do many tests, but I will do one or two tests, which will give me an indication of what I think. So I agreed for her to do the test, and she took the test. And that's when, like, the test took a couple of weeks before the results came back. And in October, when I got the results, I had now gone through the whole module on the emotional aspects of things,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so I was ready to deal with whatever the outcome was of my condition. And that's when she told me I was suffering from autoimmune. And why I call that a true breakthrough for me, the ability to eat, because when I went to now see a rheumatologist, and they gave me what would be the treatment plan, they gave me options of radiation and so many other things which didn't seem practical. I said, I don't have cancer, I don't have
Yeah.
any of those things, so why do you want to take me? So she told me, that's where you are heading. So I told her, but I am okay. I So she told me, "You're not taking care of yourself." So she was really, really bold the way she was saying. I was
Yes.
expecting her to basically like maybe give me some, mercy
Some
and pity.
pampering.
Yeah, some pampering, but here I was being given a whole blast. So I told her I don't want to be put on that medication because already the I was reacting to every medication that I was getting. So I don't want to take any drastic medication. So she told me, okay, go work on yourself, and we have to test you in a couple of months. Right now your autoimmune levels are not extreme, but if you don't manage yourself, you will end up with all these drastic measures.
Another thing that's just coming to mind, like, so that darkness, the gloominess and the sadness that you had before you joined, how did that change?
Okay, so the second breakthrough I had was just a few months later, just before Ramadan started, and again I there was the master class that was done that time of Ramadan, and I remember Abdishade saying that we needed to write like uh, preferably up to 100 points of why we are grateful for. And so what I did is everything that was negative in my life, in terms of my marriage, the house being sold, and everything that was so negative for me, including my work, I looked at each and I wrote what was great about it. And truly that I went internalizing what was positive about every opportunity. My hands just unlocked, and that was the other thing that kept bothering me so much, because my hands used to lock so much with the I think it's probably related to being anxious. So I used to be so anxious that if I didn't perform, I would be constantly unable. I would feel a stiffness in my hand that would
Okay.
literally feel like a numbing feeling. So I actually wrote so much that, and I realized the pain had disappeared and the stiffness had vanished. So I started now seeing the results. And Makyu, I had had all these problems for like 5 years from
Oh
2007.
my.
So I had literally gone spiral, and it like 2 3 months I was already seeing so much tremendous change that it
Subhanallah.
just looked like, oh my god, is this magical? What's going on?
Not magical. Magic is nothing compared to this. It's a revelation, science of the nafs.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. But I understand what you're saying, that when you struggle with something for so long, it's almost unbelievable when it changes so quickly and when you find the thing that works, because that it's almost like when we go through challenges for a long time, it's like that's the norm. And then now all of a sudden things are changing so rapidly. It's like, wait a minute. And so you would have that reaction of, is this magic? But subhanallah, all it really is of course the tools, and you applying the tools. That's the important thing, because knowing what to do and actually doing it is two different things, right? So doing it and then seeing the results. So alhamdulillah. And just in terms of now, you certified, you a coach now, you actually coaching clients. So how is it all playing out for you now in that sense?
So Alhamdulillah, even in that sense, it's so amazing, because when I hear people's story, it obviously reminds me of my own story, and I'm so confident of how it works that I believe the transformation is just there, and I can pick where they're going wrong with their life, and I'm able to immediately see what needs to be done. And what's so mesmerizing is it feels so good that you can serve other people. And
Yeah.
a number of the situations I'm having is related to marriage. And it's so amazing that I went through a whole marriage crisis to the extent that I was almost divorced, and yet at the peak of it, I still reversed it to the level that my marriage was
Alhamdulillah.
completely resolved. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So any fun stories that you want to share with me? So like, when we speak about the journey, it's often this journey of healing and growing, and it's almost like seems like there's so many problems, but we know within the institute that there's so much focus on building ourselves, building our lives, the lives that we want, right? And so really optimizing our life. And it's not just about fixing and resolving problems, that's a big part of it. But within the institute, with the Science of the Nafs journey, we also learn how to optimize our life, how to actually aim higher, and again making those impossible du'as. So do you have any example where something happened that completely blew your mind, where you used the tools and the results and the outcome actually blew your mind?
So I have two incidences that totally blew my mind. One was the transformation of my husband himself, because one of the issues we used to have, because he's a revert. I used to really overwhelm him with salah, and once he came back, I kept supporting him. He kept seeing my changes and my improvements, and he was truly observing me, and he started getting curious about the nafs transformation. So I made him watch the few, actually the Quranic reflection is what he watched, and he was, I don't know what hit him, and he started going to the mosque, and all his prayers he would do it at the mosque. And even right now it's more or less like we go to the mosque as a family together. So it always feels like, we're having Eid every day, because that feeling of you're going to the
Yes,
mosque.
the whole
It just
family.
feels, yeah, as
Yes,
a
yes.
family. But that started becoming our daily life, where we would all just be at the mosque. In fact, unless I have a class, Maghrib to Isha, we spent the whole that period at the mosque every day. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
So
That's
that was my,
amazing.
yeah, that was my first one. The second thing that was a real breakthrough for me is, my in-laws, obviously they're not practicing Islam, and that used to really create a lot of conflict in the household, because there was always the feeling that I stole my husband away from his people.
Okay.
uh, and so what was so amazing, while I was transforming and they were watching how our marriage had fallen apart and we were all now back together, and that led to my mother-in-law embracing Islam. Alhamdulillah.
Allahu Akbar. Subhanallah. Look at that. That's wow, that's amazing. So your mother-in-law embraced and wow, subhanallah.
So truly, I would say the formulas work, the Quran works. I literally experienced, truly, the Surah Raz example, because as I transformed, everyone around me transformed along with me.
Yes, subhanallah. And we often hear Ustad Abdul Shahid speak, right? And you just made me think about that now because you were setting that example without saying anything, without doing anything. You were just being, you were practicing, and people could see that change. And they could see the change in your family, your husband, and subhanAllah, that's from Allah. And that, then of course, Allah guided your mother in law's heart and she embraced Islam. But that just speaks back to and how people start seeing the results when you start like practicing the tools or applying the tools into your life. So, what an amazing story! What an wow! Like subhanallah, so
Alhamdulillah.
I could sense you were. I don't know if you were gonna cry now or if you were gonna laugh, but
Yeah, it's both.
definitely something that
Alhamdulillah.
moves you. Yeah,
Oh, it
subhanallah.
was the most magical, because I remember when I asked my husband to come back. I had just watched one of the recording where the Shade was talking of, the Musa story, and how
Yes,
the sea can part for you, and I just said, Ya Allah, let my sea part for me, and I told him, come back home.
subhanallah. And so, where are you now? Like, what's the next? Like, what's happening now in your journey?
But Alhamdulillah, my office is Alhamdulillah doing well, in terms of And even that, truly, I've become more or less a master at it, because now I can apply my tools even in my business, even in my legal practice. To be honest, I've seen so many wins in my court cases that I know
Wow.
it's because I am applying. Even in there, I can tell when I where this mood is swing with the judges. I'm able to tell how they're the parties. I'm able to analyze my clients better and give them what they need, because I used to have a fear. As a lawyer, you see, you are the one who is a trustee, and I used to
Yes.
feel like, am I being an honest trustee? Am I guiding them right? But with the Nafs transformation tool, I now basically go through my client thoroughly, to the extent that I know now, is this really what they want, or is this an irrational decision that they are
Oh,
making? And Alhamdulillah, and with the enrollments I'm getting and the clients I'm getting for coaching, initially I was
alhamdulillah.
like, how will I manage two careers? But subhanallah, it's really helping my charity as well, because I have now more to. In one angle, I'm able to offer uh, and help people transform, and at the same time, the funds that I get, I'm putting it back for the food distributions and all the other things
MashaAllah.
that I used to love doing all the through.
Wow. So you really, that's through optimization. That's what we learn on the journey, like living a life that you can't even imagine. Because when you start on the journey, you don't really know how it's all going to play out. And
Yes.
then, because I remember those words when things happen, I remember Ustad Abdul Shahid's words that like you will go through a total transformation and you will create the life that you want to live, that you truly want, and you will live a life that you can't yet imagine, right? And
Yes.
so it always takes me back to those words that when it actually happens, you're like, yes, I couldn't imagine it, but now, alhamdulillah, I'm living it.
I'm
So,
loving it so much that, even the sale of the house that I was so traumatized about, its sale, and what I ended up buying was just near the mosque. So it's like, Allah truly planned everything, and it totally feels like the best of plan. Allah Al Qadir truly
alhamdulillah.
planned my life, because I would not have made any of the decisions that I am living right now, and yet they are the best things and what I wanted truly.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Sister Shabana, that was amazing. Jazakallah khair.